Hey everyone, it's Tony Leonardi, your certified financial planner professional and author of A Smarter Way to Retire. Back with another episode of A Smarter Way to Retire podcast. Last week we talked about a very powerful concept, how the IRS takes 2 bites at your retirement apple. Once during your lifetime through RMDs, and again when your heirs inherit your account. They have to pay taxes, withdrawing your IRA over a 10-year period. 2 bites at the apple. We introduced 2 strategies, the Smart Retirement Tax Shield and the Smart Legacy Tax Shield, designed to help you pay tax once instead of paying tax twice. Today I want to build directly on that conversation and talk about one of the most important distinctions that you can make in your retirement plan. The difference between live-on assets and leave-on assets. Live-on versus leave-on is the topic for today. This single distinction can dramatically change how you invest, how you plan for taxes, and how much you ultimately leave for your family. There are really 2 major inflection points in one's financial lifetime. The first is when you retire. I refer to this as the time that you move from the accumulation phase to the withdrawal phase. This point is pretty easy to recognize. You wake up one day and you don't have to go to work. You're officially retired. At that point, you should be making a major adjustment in your investment philosophy. Investing for withdrawals is not the same game as investing for accumulation, investing for savings. We've talked about sequence of returns risk, longevity risk, and other risks that suddenly pop up when you retire. And they require a whole different strategy from the one that you've been using for the past 30 years to accumulate and save. The problem is that most people don't make that adjustment. We've had several episodes dedicated to this topic, and I talk about this in depth in my book, A Smarter Way to Retire, in Chapter 8, analyzing your current investments and retirement investment risk. The second major inflection point is much harder to recognize, yet still calls for a major shift in your strategy and your philosophy, and most people miss this altogether. What am I talking about? It's the point when you realize that you have 2 types of assets. You have live-on assets and you have leave-on assets in your portfolio. So what do I mean by live-on assets versus leave-on assets? Live-on assets are those assets that you expect to spend down during your lifetime. Money you'll use for basic living expenses, taxes, traveling, hobbies, helping your kids or grandkids, covering healthcare costs, etc. It's the money that you'll need to tap into to live on. Those are your live-on assets. Leave-on assets are the dollars that you intend to pass on to your children or grandchildren. These are the accounts that you hope will eventually continue to keep growing and become part of your kids' inheritance. The problem is many people treat all of their retirement accounts the exact same way. Same investment mix, same withdrawal strategy, same tax planning. But once you separate your money into these 2 categories, everything changes. So how do you recognize and calculate the difference between live-on and leave-on assets? Here's a simple way to figure out your split. And again, here is where a good comprehensive financial model will pay off for you, as opposed to a back-of-the-napkin plan. First, run a realistic retirement spending plan. How much do you actually need each year to live on and to live the life that you want to live? 2, subtract your guaranteed income sources, Social Security, pensions, rental income, part-time income, any income that you have coming in. 3, the remaining amount you'll need to withdraw from your savings each year. That's your live-on bucket. Everything left over, the accounts you don't plan to touch for spending, those become your leave-on assets, your leave-on bucket. Now, obviously, this is a very simplistic approach I'm describing here. You should also calculate in the cost of inflation, market volatility, and other risks as well. And that's very hard to do in a simplified model like I just explained, like those offered for free online. Again, here's where a good comprehensive model will pay off for you. Most of my clients are surprised to discover that between 40 and 70% of their retirement savings actually falls into the leave-on category. So how should you treat these two buckets differently? Once you know the split, you can manage each bucket with a completely different strategy. For your live-on assets, these dollars need to be reliable and available when you need them. Your investment style should be more of a conservative allocation, higher bond and fixed income exposure to reduce volatility. Tax planning should focus on tax-efficient withdrawals and strategies like Roth conversions or QCDs, qualified charitable distributions, to keep taxable income lower. Roth conversions are great for leave-on assets. Pay those taxes earlier on while you're in lower tax brackets. Withdrawal strategies for leave-on assets use the guardrail approach that we spoke about a few episodes back, or the bucket approach. These were both discussed in episode 64, Retirement Income. Make sure you're not forced to sell investments at the wrong time when the market is down. You don't want to start that snowball effect. In short, your live-on assets are generally more conservative and focused on smart, efficient tax planning for you during your lifetime. Your leave-on assets, these are dollars that have a much longer time horizon. Could be 20, 30, 40 or more years. Your investment style, you can afford to be more aggressive, more growth-oriented, higher equity exposure, because you don't need this money soon or at all. You can afford more volatility. You have time to recover from more volatility. Your tax planning should focus on tax-deferred growth and legacy-efficient tax strategies like the Smart Legacy Tax Shield that we talked about last week. Your tax planning for your kids now, not for yourself. Your withdrawal strategy, you can be much more patient and let the money continue to compound higher and longer, because you probably will never need to tap into this bucket. You can consider this to be a very long-term emergency fund. It's there if you need it, but you probably won't tap into it. When you recognize that you have live-on and leave-on assets, and you treat these two buckets differently, you usually end up with a higher overall probability of success, meaning the ability to reach all of your goals, including your inheritance goals. You create lower lifetime taxes and a much stronger tax-efficient legacy for your family. Let me give you a quick example. I recently worked with a couple who had $2.8 million in retirement accounts. After running their numbers, after running their financial model, we discovered that about $1.1 million of their retirement assets were truly their live-on assets, their live-on money, and about $1.7 million we could consider their leave-on money. They were surprised to find that split. By adjusting their asset allocation and tax strategy for each bucket separately, we improved their probability of success from 78% to 94% and significantly increased the projected amount their children will receive tax efficiently. If you have substantial retirement savings and some of those dollars are intended for the next generation, separating leave-on from live-on assets is one of the highest leverage planning steps that you can take today. I've put together a brand new guide called the Smart Tax Shield Legacy Playbook. It walks through both tax strategies that we talked about last week and this concept of live-on versus leave-on framework. It will be available for free download on my website soon. I'll keep you posted on that. Even better, I'm still offering to build your own smart retirement model at no cost or no obligation while time slots are available on my calendar. You'll see exactly how much of your savings falls into each bucket, live-on versus leave-on, and how the right treatment for each one can improve your plan, not only for you, but for your kids and your grandkids. You can book a quick 15-minute call on my website, leonardifamilywealthcare.com. Look for my contact and Calendly links. Thanks for listening, and remember, there really is a smarter way to retire. We'll see you next week.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Mosaic Wealth, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Mosaic Wealth is separately owned in other entities, and all marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Mosaic Wealth. The opinions expressed herein are for general information only and is not necessarily the opinions of Mosaic Wealth or its representatives. Investing is subject to risk, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. It is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Please consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation.